Maybe you're watching television or reading something on the internet or reading some publication, and all of a sudden something comes across that says Company A is merging or acquiring Company B. And it's a big headline. It's a merger or acquisition, or M&A, mergers and acquisition. And that is a big thing in these companies when that happens. And it's a big thing for stockholders like us, whether you own individual stocks or own stocks in a mutual fund. Whenever there's an M&A or merger activity or acquisition activity coming on or happening, that can be very, very impactful, either good or bad, for our stock. So it's something we want to pay attention to for certainly the companies that we own. And in a nutshell, what it means is that one company is buying or merging with another company. An acquisition would be Company A is, we're just buying you. We're going to give you so much money, or maybe so much in equivalent amounts of stock that we have to buy you. Either way, we're buying you. We're buying from your shareholders, basically. So we're buying you. That's an acquisition. A merger is still somewhat an acquisition. Somebody's usually a little bit bigger and other doing more of the buying, but basically it's a merging or two companies coming together. So it's less of one company just buying out another one. It's a little bit more of a coming together of equals typically. But they might be all called the same thing as M&A, or mergers and acquisitions, but understand the dynamics from a leadership or management standpoint of how the company is going to be run in the future, right? I've seen companies that were pretty equal as far as size, but once they merged, the one company kept the name, they kept the leadership, the CEO stayed the same, and really the other company kind of was then wrapped into that larger, or not even necessarily larger, but wrapped into that organization. So a merger acquisition can happen with cash or stock, or different ways to help finance that, debt even, to help finance this acquisition. And why do companies do this? Why do companies buy other companies or merge other companies? Well, one is to enter new markets. That's a real common way. That's a good reason for it too, is we're going to enter a new market. And by entering that new market, and try to, instead of putting a lot of money into our own research and development, try to start from maybe ground zero to grow to be an expert and then compete against this maybe leading company in a market. Why don't we just buy the leading company, wrap them into our organization, and then now we can be the leader in that market through our merger, through our acquisition. So it's one of the key things is they're looking to enter new markets. Think about when Google, for example, bought YouTube. YouTube is owned by Google, right? So, but they didn't always used to be. They were kind of a startup and then rose up there. So Google saw something, YouTube saw video and the potential for video, and said, boy, this really matches up well with our existing platforms, our existing strategies. Instead of trying to create our own Google Tube or our own version of YouTube, which they have a lot of money, they could maybe have done it. It's like, why don't we buy the guys who really know what they're doing and let them do their deal or do their thing, right? So they bought YouTube. And actually today, that worked out real well. If you think about it, the number one search engine, if we just look at search, internet search, or SEO searching, just looking at search, boy, I said search there like 5 times tonight. So for searching, Google is number one, right? It's even become the name. I'm going to Google it, right? For searching on the internet. Google's number one. You know what number 2 is, and you may or may not, but number 2, surprisingly, is not like Bing or somebody else. It is YouTube. More people search from first Google, then YouTube, just for general searching, and they're searching for videos is really what they're searching. But as far as actual searching, YouTube's number 2. And then there's Bing for Microsoft and Yahoo, and all the others are so far behind, right? So, boy, what a great move for Google in this case, but sometimes companies buy other companies, it doesn't work out. But that's one of the ideas. You want to enter new markets, or you want to expand your reach. Maybe you're merging, maybe it's someone who's more of an equal, and you want to expand your reach, not necessarily even into new markets. You want to penetrate your existing markets deeper. It's maybe the number 3 and number 4 guys getting together to help compete better against the number 1 and number 2 people or companies inside let's say a particular market. So trying to expand their reach into the markets they already have. A good example of that, the United States company, but there's others, they got some European operations, is Office Depot and Office Max. So you can tell by the name they're related to office stuff, and really what they are is they're office supply stores. They're retail stores that sell things like paper and pens and folders and supplies you would need in an office. And that's what they do. They're big retailers that sell office supplies. They're direct competitors. They share almost a name, and they were, nose to throat as far as competitors, Office Depot and Office Max. So what they decided was, instead of competing, with each other, let's get together and be a little bit better force in the market and compete against the third big competitor in the market, which was Staples, and maybe we'll compete better against that. Now even Staples looking to merge with the now new Office Depot and Office Max, and trying to form all of them together, which can get into all sorts of monopoly or antitrust things. A little side bit on the retail thing, they're saying that online ordering of retail supplies and people like Amazon are actually now the big competitors for them, and they're struggling. So they're trying to expand their reach into the office supply market by merging with, together, maybe merging equals. Another way that the third reason why folks will really look a lot at mergers and acquisitions is that they feel they can run the acquired company better, right? They look at that competitor and they say, boy, that competitor's got a lot of good stuff going for them. Maybe they got a good lead in certain markets or they're good in certain things, but overall, gosh, they run everything lousy. Their return on equity, ROA, or return on assets, all this stuff is bad. And they just don't know what they're doing, but they've got some success. That if we could just take that company over, we could, get rid of the stuff that's not working, put more money and focus on the things that is working, and really do much, much better. And so that's, you might say, well, it's a little arrogant, but a lot of times, that's especially the leaders in an industry, that's what they look at when they look at the followers and say, instead of letting these guys maybe someday rise, we don't, and especially if they're poorly managed, to say, let's just buy them, add them to us, we'll expand our market reach, we'll expand being the leader, and that'll be a great thing. And we take out a competitor at the same time, and certainly can take an undervalued company and make it better. And now overall increase the value of the bigger company, which could be great for us as stockholders. So a good example of that would be like Wells Fargo and Wachovia. They're both banks, big banks, thousands and thousands of retail locations. And Wells Fargo, a very well-run, well-managed company, has been for years and years, hundreds of years, very strong company for a long period of time. And Wachovia, this is during, they acquired them in the 2008, actually early 2009 after the big banking crisis, when the bubble burst in the banks and the mortgage crisis, and all this stuff, when everything was bad in all these economies all over the world. Wachovia was struggling. They have all these locations. They were poorly run. They took a big bet on subprime mortgages or very risky mortgages that really hurt them. And they're struggling. Maybe they're looking at bankruptcy anyway, but they have these thousands of retail bank locations. So Wells Fargo looks at it and says, wow, we can get all these new locations and maybe in some areas of the country where we're not in at all. If we buy Wachovia, they're running kind of not so good. Let us bring them in to the Wells Fargo way and take the good locations. We'll close the bad locations, or ones where we have duplication, where there's a Wachovia bank across the street from a Wells Fargo bank when we close the Wachovia. But now we can get into some new markets and we can run that acquired company better. And those are things you're looking at from an investor standpoint. When you see a merger and acquisition, step back and ask yourself, why are they doing this? Is it for entering new markets, expanding their reach? Or can they run the company better? And then you can make decisions whether you want to stay invested in the company or buy into the company. A couple last thoughts here on mergers and acquisitions. Short term, the buying company share price usually stays the same or usually actually goes down. So like in that Wells Fargo Wachovia example, it's like, well, everything sounds great for Wells Fargo. In the long term, it turns out it will be, but actually the stock price will go down initially because they're outlaying the money. They're taking the risk. They're buying the company. And the acquired company shares go up because in order to sell the company, to liquidate the company and be merged or acquired by this other company, shareholders want something for that, right? They bought these shares with the idea that the stock will go up, and maybe it's been going down for a long time, but they still hope it'll go up. So they want to get a premium on their stock price. They don't want to be paid whatever the market's paying. Anybody can buy it at the market price. They want to get paid a premium for someone to buy all the shares. And so share prices can go up, sometimes up double digits in a day when you have an announcement of a merger and acquisition. So if you own the acquiring stock, that's usually a good thing. And if you're the acquirer, the person buying it, long term it might be a good thing, but short term you might see your stock go down a little bit. After it's approved and done, then the combined company basically becomes one stock. They might even change the ticker symbol of it, like Hewlett-Packard used to be whatever it was, like HEW or something, or HP, and now it's HPQ when they bought Compaq. And then it's been splitting off since then, and different things happen there, so that's not even accurate now. But the thing is, their ticker symbol may change a little bit, but you basically have combined the two companies together. And so one strategy from an investing standpoint, there's actually a whole thing for folks who really just focus on this, who are very active, maybe more traders, is they're looking for companies that could be acquired. Remember the part where acquired company stock can go up, sometimes even dramatically in a day or two once they get acquired. So they actually look for underperforming companies and look for companies that are in industries where they might have others that want to acquire something about them. Maybe it's an underperforming medical device making company. That's a small guy who makes one device and it looks like a good promising device, but they're really struggling right now. And they hope a big company like a Medtronic or a Boston Scientific or somebody like that buys them out and pays that premium for the shares. So they're investing in these underperforming companies with the hope that they'll be acquired. Now the problem with that, if the fundamentals are still bad, the company's stock will still go down. And two things could happen. One, the stock might never go up, and they might not ever get acquired. The big company will invest in its own research and development and overtake them, and the company just goes out of business and you lost everything. Or you might have new competition coming in, because whenever there's a vacuum or somebody's underperforming, other competitors look at that and say, hey, if they're doing at least something, we could do it even better. Why don't we come in and invites new competition, which hurts you as well. So if the strategy is buy underperformers and hope they get acquired, if it works and it pays off, you're going to come out ahead. But that's a very risky strategy if that's all you're doing. But maybe you're looking at a company that says, yeah, I'm buying a value company. Maybe it's a little down right now. Maybe it'll grow up and grow its stock in the future. I have high hopes for it. The fundamentals may even look good. I might have confidence in the management. All these things that you're learning in the course. But there might be this little aspect too of like, maybe they'll get acquired too. Maybe there's some rumors around that they might get acquired as well. And that might be an opportunity to get a little shot in the arm for that company, maybe a big shot in the arm if that company gets acquired. So mergers, acquisitions, hear about them in the news less frequently than they used to be, but they're still out there. And when you hear about mergers, acquisitions in a stock that either you own or you were thinking about buying, it's on your short list of stocks to buy, either as the merger or the acquire or whatever it might be. Really looking to see what's going on, because something big is happening when there's an M&A or merger and acquisition activity.